Alright, hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Sam and welcome back. So today we're going to finally touch on something that it's been, I'm behind on. I know I'm behind on. I'm very behind on them, and that is wrap-ups. Reading wrap-ups specifically. And since we're so far behind, we're gonna do 2 months for this video, so grab a drink, grab a snack. I've almost finished my coffee, which is unfortunate because I have a feeling I'm gonna need more of it. We're gonna do, today I'm going to be doing March and April's wrap-ups. I will not be doing June because on the day that I'm filming this, it is not the end of June yet. I still have a couple days left to finish some books that I have a feeling I'm gonna finish at least one more, if not possibly 2. On the long shot I'll finish 3, but I don't think I'll quite get to 3 yet. So, but we're gonna start with March. So, in the month of March, I completed 6 books and I DNF'd 1. It was more of a soft DNF anyways. I read 2,085 pages and listened to approximately 1.6 hours of audiobooks. Of these books, 4 books were between 300 to 499 pages and 2 were under 3 pages. All of the books that I read were fiction, with the majority, 5 of them, being some sort of fantasy book. Yeah. 3 of these books were ebooks and 3 of them were physical books that I read, that I physically read. And my average rating for this month was 4 stars, so it was a pretty average month. And I read nearly every day, which is very exciting for me. I don't tend to do that. But let's hop right into it. We're gonna start with a series that I actually started in February and then I finished in March. The first book that I finished in the month of March was Grave Misconduct by Ava Chase. This is the 3rd book in the Gang of Ghouls series. This is a Why Choose romance that follows our main character who has just gotten out of an insane asylum, essentially, at 18, and she has moved back to her hometown where she is essentially still shunned, and she has found herself being protected by 4 of her former bullies who have all been possessed by ghouls who have fallen in love with her. Yes, of some sort. Yes. It's a kind of a weird concept, but in this whole thing, she's attempting to prove that she's able to take care of her younger sister and that she is able to provide for her and that she's not actually crazy and that what happened to her when she was a child was true. She's not lying about it, even though the entire town swept it under the rug and said, no, you're lying. Book 3 was the shortest book in this series. However, I really liked this one. I thought this one had some of the best character development, especially as far as the boys went, the love interests. The development to the plot really caught my attention as well, and I absolutely fell in love with the characters. I loved the direction that this book took. I'm not going to talk a lot more about it, but I did rate this one, I believe, the highest of all 4. I don't remember off the top of my head. But I really enjoyed this one, and this definitely was my favorite of the series. I did then, of course, read the 4th book in the series, which is Deathly Delinquency, which I cannot say that faster than that. I gave this one a 3.75. I was honestly a little underwhelmed with the ending. I felt like there were some questions that weren't fully answered. I'm still not sure why she has a connection to frogs. I don't understand fully. As far as a finale for a series, this book was well done. It wrapped everything up very nicely. I enjoyed the happily ever after that we got because it is a romance series, so we do get a happily ever after. I did love these characters. Like I said, I really do enjoy these characters. These, to this day, remain my favorite Ava Chase characters that I have read. And I do kind of want more for them, but I also think that their story is done. So I'm happy with where their story left off. I think it was really well done, and I really liked it. I did look at a couple of reviews online, and some people were saying they didn't understand the motivations for the big bads, and I failed to see where they're coming from because it felt pretty obvious to me what the motivations were, because people have done a lot less for less in books. So it does, in my opinion, it makes sense, but maybe I'm just not reading too far into it or any of that. overall, really enjoyed this series. Would recommend. Go in there suspending your disbelief, you have to suspend your belief. Yeah, just accept that some things are the way they are. The next book that I got to is one that I actually DNF'd, and it is a soft DNF for now. I'm not in the right mindset or any of that for this series, and I soft DNF'd Dark Currents by Lindsay Broker. This is the second book in the Emperor's Edge series. I got like 100 some odd pages into this book, and I found that I just was struggling to pick it up again. I was having a hard time really caring about what's happening to these characters. Unlike the first book, I wasn't drawn in by the mystery of this one. This one felt way all over the place, kind of honestly boring, and I wasn't sure what the connections were going to be or what they were. It wasn't working for me. So I put this one down. I may pick it up again, but as of now, I'm good. I haven't really thought about it since I put it down, honestly, which is unfortunate. I don't know if you can hear it, but two things. My furnace is on for the first time in like a week, so it's heating the house. But two, it's also raining outside, so you might hear that, but just enjoy the ambiance, I guess. That's it. And then there's the cat in here too, so she might start meowing at some point. She's not a big fan of rain. The next book that I actually read as an ebook, but then I also pre-ordered it because I was so excited for this book, and that was A Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the second book in... It's either called The Shadow of the Leviathan or an Anna and Din mystery series. I don't know which one it is. On this book, it seems to be Anna and Din mystery. I think the first one said Shadow of the Leviathan. I don't know. But this very pretty book, which is matte, printed on the hardback, which I personally like. I gave this a 5 out of 5. This series itself is proving to be one of my favorite series of all time. Honestly, I am loving these mysteries that we're finding ourselves thrown into here. This is a fantasy mystery series that kind of follows in the footsteps of Sherlock Holmes in a way. In this series, we follow Din. We follow Din, who is the assistant to a detective, in essence, named Anna. And Anna is super out there, super eccentric, super strange, and she hates leaving the confines of her room. She sends Din out to do all of her legwork and all of that, and he is an engraver, which means that he has been genetically modified in order to have a photographic memory and a memory stimulated by scents, by smells, in order to remember detail for detail what happens when he is somewhere. And he provides this skill to Anna in order to help solve mysteries for this empire. And this is the second book in the series. This one follows them in a whole new mystery. Each book seems to be a different mystery. I have no idea how long this series is going to be. Though Robert Jackson Bennett has a history of writing trilogies, I really do hope that there's more than just 3, because honestly, I would follow a long series with these characters. They're some of my favorite. I absolutely love them. Like I said, I gave it a 5 out of 5. Would highly recommend this series if you like fantasy mysteries. The next book that I read was A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher. This was a fun book. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5. This felt very middle grade, honestly. I don't think it's a middle grade book. I think it's YA. This follows 14-year-old Mona, who is a wizard, and she is able to bewitch baking. Basically, whenever she bakes something, she can imbue some of her magic into it, and she can basically make cookies come to life, or she can make a lemon scone taste better. So that's what her magic does, which she always sees as being very little, but she is beloved in her town, until someone comes around and starts targeting the wizards, and suddenly she finds herself in the middle of a political uproar, and she suddenly has to be more than she thinks she can. And it is a very sweet story, no pun intended, but I absolutely love T. Kingfisher's writing for this, and I would love to read more of the fantasy side of her writing. This kind of fantasy that's a lot of fun. While it's still gripping and it's still gritty at times, it is just pure enjoyment. I really, really highly recommend this one. I understand completely why it is so popular right now. So I get it. I understand the hype. I'm here for it. Next book that I read was actually one that I half listened to, half read, but I'm counting it as physically read. And that is A Dance of Cloaks by David Dalglish. This is the first book in the Shadow Dancer series. In the Shadow Dance series, not Dancers. This is the first book in the Shadow Dance series. And this is technically a reread for me, but I haven't read this book in quite a few years. I think I decided it was like 5 or 6 years. And I didn't remember it, which is why I'm glad I reread it, because now I'm jumping into the next book, and I'm glad to have reread the first one to remember what's going on. This book follows a boy named Aaron, who is the son of one of the most powerful clan leaders in this city area, and his father is basically training him to become the next greatest assassin. And when someone new shows up at the clan and asks to join, Aaron starts second-guessing himself and wondering if this is actually the life that he wants, or if he's just doing it because he's scared of his father. And the story kind of starts there, and it expands, and it gets very big, very dramatic. There's clan wars, there's a lot going on, there's magic, there's multiple points of view. There's a lot of stuff happening, honestly, in this series. Highly recommend if you like your high fantasy. And if you like assassin books, this is probably one of the best ones that I can recommend as of now. It is one of my favorite assassin books. John has read this entire series, which I believe is 6 books, and he really liked it. He keeps pushing me to finish the series. As he says, we have things to talk about. So I'm excited. I really enjoy this one, and I cannot wait to see where the series goes. So, because the next book takes place five years, I believe, after the ending of this first one, which was super dramatic. The last book that I managed to read in the month of March was The Good Thieves by Catherine Rundell. Now, this one I ended up giving a 3.25. It was fine. It was a good time, middle grade. It takes place in 1920s Manhattan and follows a girl named Vita, V-I-T-A, and she gets a group of misfits together, basically, in order to try and save her grandfather's home. It's very interesting. Again, it's a middle grade. You have to suspend some of your disbelief in it. I had a good time with this one. It was entertaining, but I did find it dragged a bit. For me, this one just didn't quite hit the spot. I don't know what it was, but it was good. I enjoyed the characters. I thought it was a fun story. That's about it. All right, so those are the books that I read in March. Now we're gonna move on to April. So let me get my stats. In the month of April, I finished 13 books, and I DNF'd 1. Which is really impressive. I haven't read that many books in a month in a very long time, and I'm so happy to get back towards that. Although June is proving not to be a 13-book month. Or May. May is proving not to be a 13-book month, unfortunately. But we're just gonna hop right into it because there's a lot of books for me to talk about here. So yes. But for the month of April, like I said, I read 13 books, which amounted to approximately 3,710 pages, along with 9 hours on audio. Of these books, 5 were under 300 pages, and 7 were between 300 to 499. They were all fiction. Again, I did not start reading my nonfiction actually until this month. And then my top 2 genres were romance and fantasy, followed very closely by mystery. So those are my top 3 genres, which makes a lot of sense for what I usually read. 1 of the books I read via audio, 6 were ebook format, and then 6 were physical books that I own. Some of them I switched between two different forms. That's just kind of how it goes. And my average rating again for this month was a 4.08. So there we go. All right, so the first book that I read in the month of April was another Ava Chase book. So I started my month with Ava Chase once again, and I read Chosen by Villains, which is the first book in the Heart of Monsters series by Ava Chase. I gave this a 3 out of 5. And part of that is down to personal preference, honestly, as far as my romances go, especially monster romances. This is definitely a monster romance. Like, the Gang of Ghouls was borderline monster, but they were human. Like, they were in human bodies, so they were technically humans, like, as far as all of the sexy time and all of the smutty scenes went. For this one, they weren't. And I think I have found my line in the sand. So in this book, our main character's name is Quinn. She is a thrill seeker. She is looking for the next big adventure because she has what she refers to as the ticking time bomb of a heart. So she has, and I believe it was a heart surgery, which I do appreciate with Ava Chase's books. She does delve into some different topics that aren't usually addressed in a lot of books. But what she doesn't expect is when 3 monsters jump out and end up protecting her from another horde of monsters that are attacking her. And she ends up kind of, like almost like teaming up with these monsters. They take her and they go to protect her from these creatures as they try to figure out what's going on and why are they hunting her. And really it's them protecting her that starts the book. And it's very interesting. I liked the concept of it, but I think the problem was I couldn't, for one, there's tentacles. I'm not a fan of tentacles, not my thing. And for 2, one of the men is a gargoyle, and all I keep picturing are from the show Gargoyles, and it just doesn't work for me, unfortunately. So that's kind of a weird one, and that, again, I think for me, this series boils down to personal preference. The plot was interesting. I liked our heroine quite a bit, honestly. She was a little annoying at times, but that made her more human, I guess. I do have a feeling of where it would be going, but I don't think that this is a series that I'm going to continue. So after I put this one down, I picked up another book that I realized is technically a prequel to this series, because we meet the 4 characters from that series, or the 5 characters from that series, or from this first series in the other one. So prequel, you meet the 5 in the original prequel series, and then they make a cameo appearance in this second series, the Heart of a Monster series. So I read Shadow Thief, which is the first book in the Flirting with Monsters series. I really liked this one. I gave this one a 4 out of 5. I liked this one better than I liked the other series. So the main character of this story that we follow is Sorsha, who is an advocate basically for monsters' rights, if you will. She is this very hot-headed, very in-your-face person who's also a thief. And at the beginning of the book, she breaks into a giant mansion and she finds shadow creatures in cages and she releases them, and that is where we start. And honestly, I absolutely loved this book. I thought it was so much fun. There were bits and pieces of it that had me kind of questioning a little bit. And again, it is a monster romance, but I liked this one a bit better. So we'll see. I do think I'm going to continue with this series. I haven't yet. I wasn't that gripped by it, but I also think I was coming down off of my wanting to read Why Choose Romance at this point. So, and I'm a mood reader, if anything. We all know this very well. So that's probably why. But that's the second book, and I really did enjoy this, and like I said, I probably will continue with the series eventually. I do think I really like Ava Chase's writing style for Why Choose, and I did get to meet her at AlpaliCon, which was a lot of fun and really nice. The next book that I read was Hell of a Witch by Rachel Aaron. This is the second book in the Tear Down Heaven series, and the first book in this series is called Hell for Hire, and it follows Bex and Adrian. Bex is a demon, and her friends, her posse, are all hired by Adrian in order to protect him, as he is one of the few male witches in existence, as he attempts to stop the angels and emperors from basically taking over the world. And they've already been they've been enslaving demons for centuries, and Adrian is here to help stop it. So that's kind of where the series starts. The second book picked up where the first book left off, and I really liked the turn that it took. I liked the action scenes. I do like Rachel Aaron's writing style, and I want to pick up some more stuff by her that's not coded the same as this. But I will say the covers for these books are absolutely stunning. I absolutely love it. I have the third one. I do plan on reading it soon. So I am very excited. It's also very large print, so yes. But I'm really enjoying this series and would highly recommend again. The next book I read was an arc that I had, and that was A Proposal to Die For by Molly Harper, who we also met at a Polycon. She was very sweet. And I read this one completely, obviously on my Kindle. I read this one while we were on our way to a Polycon. I read this one in my 8-hour layover at the airport. A Proposal to Die For is a cozy mystery, basically, with a bit of romance thrown in there. It follows Jessamine, who is a proposal planner. So she helps people to plan the perfect proposal, like marriage proposal, and that is something she absolutely loves to do, until one day she is basically thrown into helping an old classmate, since her classmate believes that her fiance messed up, and his proposal was terrible and he needs to do better, and so she's hired Jessamine in order to fix it. And the next thing she knows, she's being drafted into a wedding planning weekend up at a resort with very little cell phone reception, and she's thrown into the deep end of very rich people and all of their needs, and she is completely out of her depth as to what to do, only to find that she seems to really get along with the people who own this resort, and they seem to really like her in return. And then one day, she finds a dead body. And so the story goes from there. It is a cozy mystery series, which means there are high stakes, but it is very cozy. It is very calm. It doesn't feel high stakes, even though there is murder in the book. So, yes. But I absolutely loved this story. I ate it up. I gave it originally a 4, but I think it's going to end up getting a 4.5 out of me. I absolutely loved it. And I would love to read more from Molly Harper because this book was so much fun. The next book I read was another arc, because I was trying to go on reading those, and I read Serial Killer Games by Kate Posey. Now this is one that I ended up winning in like a giveaway of NetGalley arcs. Both actually, A Proposal to Die For and this one were in the same giveaway, which was very exciting. But this one was not at all what I expected it to be, and I really appreciated that for this book. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. It really tugged at my heartstrings. I enjoyed all of it. But the summary of it doesn't exactly give the same idea. But we're gonna go with the summary of it anyways, because that's what we get. This follows Dolores de la Cruz, who is working in an office building. She has a fascination with true crime, and she is absolutely positive that the new office temp is a serial killer. And Jake Ripper, who is the new office temp, thinks that Dolores seems like a lot of fun, until one day she asks him to help her dispose of a body. And that's what we know. That is the beginning of the story. They have a really fun, kind of bantery, you want to say borderline enemies, but they're really not enemies, relationship going on. There's family dramas, there's personal dramas, there's a lot going on. Would recommend, but it is heart-tugging. There are trigger warnings in there, and honestly, I really enjoyed it, so take that how you will. I enjoy some weird books, though, sometimes, too. The next book I read is one that I got at a Polygon, and that was Return to Hell by Raven Salvador. I saw Raven Salvador in at least one panel, and she was so wonderful to listen to, and she was super nice to talk to. And this is a spin-off of her main series that I kind of wish I had picked up her main series as well. The hard part was I didn't have a lot of room. These books aren't big, they're novellas. I could have picked up more, I didn't. But I binged this book. This follows Melody, who is a true crime podcaster who is contacted by a serial killer in another country who is willing to do an exclusive interview with her for no other reason than he hasn't been willing to talk to anybody, but he's willing to talk to her. And this is technically, there's some romance in here, but I absolutely loved the thriller aspect in here. The paranormal aspect in here was amazing. I really liked this one. I gave it a 3.75, and I do want to read more from this author. It was a good quick read, honestly. Then on a whim at a Polycon, I picked up a book that I saw a bunch of people talking about, and that was Feed the Birds by Dakota Wilde. This was a wild book, honestly. I gave it a 3.75. This is a Mary Poppins retelling, but add spice, add some dark magic, and add cursed objects, and you've got this book. I really, really enjoyed this. I don't really want to do too much of a description of it, except for it follows Marigold Pepins, who is our Mary Poppins character, and she is under a curse to follow what the wind tells her, and she is never remembered by anyone once she disappears. The other person is Barrett Blackford, who is a recently widowed father of two who has sworn never to love again after his wife. And they both have some really sketchy stuff in their pasts, but since both have vowed to never love again, they aren't too worried about it when she shows up at his door, but he can't seem to stop thinking about her. Again, this is a very short book, but I did enjoy it. I gave it a 3.75. This does have a lot of spicy scenes. I would definitely give it like a 3 or 4 on the spicy scale. So multiple spicy scenes. I'd say probably almost a quarter of this book is spicy scenes. So like, take that how you will. I did enjoy the plot beyond the spice as well. I thought that was well done. But I understand why people were picking it up, and I do think that people will definitely be reading it. I guess I'd recommend it. It's a good one. So 3.75. I'd recommend it to certain people. Let's go with that. As a switch, the next book that I read was Spy X Family Volume 7 by Tatsuya Endo. I fell off the bandwagon of reading my Spy X Family volumes as they came out back with Volume 7, so technically this was a reread because I forgot that I had read Volume 7 until I started reading it and went, I feel like this is familiar, and then I looked back and went, oh, I have read this. Oh well, that's fine. Still, it was a good reminder. I didn't remember the last half of this book, so I wonder if I stopped halfway through because I do that sometimes. I gave this a 4.75 out of 5. I absolutely love this story. For those of you who have not heard of the manga or anime Spy X Family, this follows Master Spy Twilight, who is a spy for one side of the war, and he is tasked with infiltrating a school in order to get close to the headmaster and to one of the elite parents there as well. But in order to infiltrate a school, he needs a child, and in order to enroll said child at the school, he needs a wife. So he goes and finds himself a child who happens to be a psychic, which he doesn't realize, and then finds himself a wife who happens to be an assassin for the opposite side of the war. And shenanigans ensue. Basically, it's about 3 people who have never had a true healthy family trying to figure out how to be a family themselves. And it is very sweet. It is a beloved series. I think we're up to volume 13, so I am like 6 books behind. I need to catch up. Would highly, highly recommend both the manga and the anime. They are so good. I thoroughly am enjoying the series. And John and I are watching the anime and really liking that one. The next book I read is one that I was surprised by. I wasn't sure what to think about it. I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it. And that's Reverie by Ryan LaSala. This is a very interesting book that I knew very little about going in, but this follows a boy named Kane Montgomery who wakes up half dead on the edge of the river with no memories about how he got there. And the strange things that start to happen to him and he goes back to school. People who say they were not friends with him, or people who say they were friends with him, who he suddenly isn't sure if he can trust them or not. There's magic, there's mysticism, there's all sorts of things going on in this. There's dreamlands, and honestly, it was really, really good, and I really enjoyed myself with this one. I don't want to get too far into it because it gets into spoilery territory very quickly. It was a lot of fun. It was very interesting. I didn't know what to expect. Would recommend the audiobook. The audiobook was very good when I did listen to it. I mostly listened to the audiobook for this one. I also did read some of it, so that's why I got both of them. But I got a 4 out of 5, so I did like it. We're almost there, I promise. The next book that I'm going to talk about is actually one that I DNF'd, and that's going to be Murder by Cheesecake by Rachel Ekstrom Courage. This is the first book in the Golden Girls series, so this does use the characters from the Golden Girls, which is a show that I watched off and on a little bit when I was growing up, but we didn't watch it a lot. I appreciate the little snippets I see of it. I do find it amusing. But in reading this book, I don't know if it was just the wrong time for me to read it or what, but it just didn't hit for me, unfortunately. So this one was a DNF for me at about 15%, 20% of the way through the book itself. So unfortunately for me, this book just was a miss. I feel like I would enjoy watching this as an episode of the show rather than than reading it. It didn't work in book format for me, personally. I kind of got bored, I'm not gonna lie, unfortunately. And that, again, that very well could be a me thing. That very well could be a me thing. But that one was DNF. Alright, I got 4 books left, guys. There's just 4 left, and honestly, if you watched my 24-hour readathon, you would have seen these 4 already in that video, because that's when I read them, or finished them at least. So there's only 4 left. I know this is a long video. I'm sorry. I've read a lot of books apparently lately. But the first one is The Woodkin by Alexander James. This is the first book. This is the only book in this. It's not a series. This is a book that I got from Twisted Retreat, which is why it's so pretty. But I think I'm gonna need to do some sort of like a reading vlog or something where I go through and I actually experiment and read a bunch of these horror books, because I didn't really enjoy this one. I enjoyed parts of it. I enjoyed the actual horror aspect of this book. In this one, we follow Josh, who is out camping. He's out, he is seeking solace on the Pacific Crest Trail, the PCT, in order to get over some drama that has happened at home and some problems at home. He's trying to be by himself. And the problem he runs into is that one night someone comes and ransacks his campsite and ends up taking all of his food, and he has to go to another town in order to stop and pick up food for the trail. But the town's really weird and he basically gets chased out. So, and then horror happens. But like I said, I loved the horror elements of this book, but I didn't love the book itself. So I'm not sure what it is that I like about horror books, unfortunately. So I think I need to actually like sit down and go through it and try and figure that out. So this one got a 3.75 out of 5, so it's not a bad rating at all. But I don't know. There's just something about this that just didn't quite work for me. The next one was Doves and Demons by Cleo Evans. This is the first book in the Freaks of Nature duet by her. This was an impulse pickup, very much so. This is a Why Choose monster romance. I gave it a 4 out of 5, mostly because outside of the smut, the plot was really well done, and I really enjoyed the steampunk plot that was behind this, the almost like gang wars that was happening. I really did enjoy that, and I thought that was a really fun and well put together idea. The smut added to it. It's definitely listed as erotica, which I didn't look at first, and it's erotica, it is, very much so. I don't think I'm going to continue with the series, though, on this one. This follows Irene, who at the beginning of the book ends up getting kind of kidnapped by the leaders of the Freaks, who are a gang in London of freaks. So we've got a plague doctor, we've got a Mothman, and we've got an Undoing, I believe is how you say it. So that's them. Those are the three love interests. This is polyamorous as well, because two of the guys are sleeping together, and they have been since before the book started. And the plot kind of goes from there. She makes a deal with them to try and help, but also she's planning on going back in the deal. There's a lot going on in this book. I did enjoy it. Like I said, it's got a 4 out of 5 from me. Next, on another different note, I read My Dear Detective Mitsuko's Case Files, Volume 1 by Natsumi Ito. This is the first volume in a series, obviously, of manga. I absolutely loved this story. It follows Hoshino Mitsuko, who is a hardworking woman in 1920s Japan, while she is trying to be a detective in a very sexist time period, and she ends up meeting Saku, Yoshida Saku, who is a waiter at the beginning of the book, but it turns out he's got a bunch of different jobs, and he basically names himself her assistant and is like, let's go have fun, do the crimes and solve the crimes, and he's the most encouraging, and it's really adorable. It's very sweet. I just read the second volume in this, and I absolutely love this series. This is one I think I will end up purchasing. I just hit myself in the face. But I absolutely love this. There's a couple different mysteries that happen throughout this story, throughout this first volume, and it's just a lot of fun, honestly. I really did enjoy this one. And the last book that I'm going to talk about in this video, finally, we've reached the end. I told you we'd get there. Is Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. This is a reread. I absolutely love this book. This has been a favorite book of mine for quite a while now. This is where the inspiration for the Studio Ghibli movie came from, and she actually talks about it in an interview at the end of the book, where she talks about her thoughts on the movie and her thoughts on what they changed and all of that. So I thought that was also very interesting. This follows Sophie Hatter, who is set to inherit her stepmother's hat shop, and she ends up finding herself cursed by the Witch of the Waste, and cursed to look like an old woman, and she just embraces that and ends up going on a journey to try and find a way to break the curse. And it's very fun. If you've seen the movie, I honestly would highly recommend reading the book. It's very different in many ways, and my favorite ways that is different is the characters. The characters are honestly much deeper. They are much sassier in the book than they are in the movies. Like that little bit of sass you get from Sophie in the movies, multiply that by like 20 and you have Sophie in the books. And how dramatic Howl is in the movies, not saying he's not. He's very dramatic in the movies. Multiply that by like 10 and you got the Howl in the books. So well done. Really enjoyed this. This is a series. I haven't read the other 2 books in this series, but I might do that at some point. There are some pictures in here, but they're really just at the beginning of the chapters. So, and you get more information on Howl, where he came from, what's on the other sides of the door, and all of that kind of stuff. So it is very interesting. It is a lot of fun. Would highly, highly recommend. Of course, it got a 5 out of 5 from me because I love this book so much. Definitely one of my favorites. So, now that the pile is flipped the other way, now you can see most of the covers. Look at all these books, plus several others that I don't have physical copies of that I read in the last 2 months. That was fun. That's what I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe. It really does help me out in the long run, and I know that we're starting to get more people here, and that's very exciting. But if you did, I hope you stick around, and until next time, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, keep reading, and keep moving forward. Bye!